Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the nation right here, TYT Nation. I'm Jeff Waldorf here. Surprisingly here today. But hey, there's stuff that I want to talk about, so I'm here. So we have, we're going to talk about some of the stuff that's in this book, Fire and Fury, which is absolutely amazing. Stuff about Ivanka Trump, Steve Bannon, Kellyanne Conway. We got Trump on why he eats so much McDonald's. That's amazing. It's hilarious. Then we've got serious policy stuff. Jeff Sessions and the recent changes in marijuana policy at the federal level. That's a very consequential story. With a surprising, I'm going to have some surprising thoughts on that. Then we have Bernie Sanders also responding to Sessions on that as well. So you're gonna want to stay for that. So we're going to talk about those stories. I can't promise the whole hour. I spent like half my day going out and going to the doctor and getting stuff for being sick. I still cannot seem to shake this. Terrible, right? But like I said, I'm here. I'm doing a show, and that's it. That's what we're gonna do. So I'll give you all the time that I have, and we're gonna get through these stories, and hopefully we're gonna have some fun. And hopefully I don't cough too much. So I'm really trying not to. All right. So we'll start out first by thanking everybody for being here. If you haven't already, please give us a like and a share. Thanks to everybody who helps us out on Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation. Thanks for everybody who, or to everybody that likes and shares our videos. That helps out a shit ton. So thank you so much for all that stuff. All right. Now, let's get into the first story. We'll have some fun. Okay. Continue that story, because this is some fantastic drama that I did not want to miss. All right. So recently, there's a book out, Fire and Fury, inside the Trump White House. So this is from journalist Michael Wolff. So he spent some time in the Trump campaign, inside the Trump White House for about a year. He had 200 different interviews with Trump himself, and of course, the interview with Bannon, or the interviews with Bannon, have been getting the most attention because they're arguably the best part of this book from what we've seen. Case in point, Bannon versus Ivanka. Now, according to an excerpt from this book, I love this. Former White House strategist Steve Bannon had called President Trump's daughter dumb as a brick. Here's the full quote in context. Quote, a little marketing savvy and has a look, but as far as understanding actually how the world works and what politics is and what it means, nothing. Once you expose that, you lose credibility. So saying, yeah, well, hey, look, she looks good and everything, and yeah, she's got sort of a successful business, but she's also an idiot. She doesn't know how politics works. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's very unqualified for this office. I actually definitely agree with that, because she has no qualifications other than being a child of Donald Trump. And I'm sorry, that's not enough for you to actually be able to be in this position, this office as a White House advisor. So I love this for a couple of reasons. Now, here's Steve Bannon, for one, mercilessly going after the Trump family. Now, this is pretty much the reason for the split between Donald Trump and Steve Bannon. Of course, Bannon, he's like, no, you don't understand. I still support Donald Trump. I still think his policies. I still think Donald Trump is... Here we go. I still think Donald Trump's a fantastic man. He's a great, great man, and I still support him. This is even after, by the way, Trump himself came out with that statement that says, "Oh, I hardly knew Steve Bannon." You know how it goes, right? Anytime that somebody gets in trouble or they leave the White House or say something bad about the president, he's like, barely even knew him, overstated his importance, hardly did anything, not a part of my inner circle, nothing like that. Really? He essentially ran the place. Saturday Night Live was not off when they did the skit about Bannon essentially running the entire White House. Wasn't off. But okay. So now I think there's a reason that Bannon is holding his fire, right? And this is interesting too, because there's an article out in The Hill that says, according to multiple sources with knowledge of the situation, that Bannon's aides sought to impress upon him the need to put out a statement quickly after that the excerpts from the book came out. So this statement was basically to push back and dispute some of the quotes and say, no, you understand, some of those quotes are out of context, and Donald Trump Jr., the guy who said that Mueller would crack like an egg on live TV, that he's actually a patriot, right? Now, those quotes in the book described what he did with the meeting with Natalia Veselnitskaya in Trump Tower, the 25th floor, that meeting where they tried to get dirt on Hillary Clinton. He described that as unpatriotic and actually treasonous, right? So now, look, Bannon's aides are like, you need to put out a statement, you need to fight up against this. And they were actually going to do that. But then the White House, President Trump, put out his statement essentially blasting Bannon. And you got to check out this quote. I'm going to go to Politico here. And this is from Republican strategist Ed Rollins, who's a strategist for the pro-Trump Great America Super PAC. He said, quote, "Bannon was shot on the South Lawn and run over by a tank, and the president shifted in gear and ran over him again. I've never seen anybody blown up like he has, or like he was." Oh, man. So the fallout from this, and the reason that Bannon tried to put out a statement on this, or was going to put out a statement, is because the deplorables, right? So now the deplorables at Breitbart, right now they're confused. They don't know who to hate. They don't know who to attack because, oh my God, I'm pro-Trump and I'm also pro-white supremacist and alt-right. But Donald Trump is still pro-white supremacist and alt-right. Oh my God, who do I go after? Who do I go after? They were fighting. And it's kind of awesome. But back to Ivanka, right? Now, Ivanka, look, I've said before, she has no role in the White House. She doesn't actually do anything. She's not a leader on any issue. She said that she was going to be a voice for working women while in the White House. She's going to push for policies to help working women. Really? Well, what has she done? Nothing. The only reason that she's there is that she's Donald Trump's daughter. But we knew that already. This is not a surprise, right? And we probably also should have figured out, and I think a lot of us have, that Ivanka Trump is not necessarily a smart person. Now, she seems to, because she basically shuts up. She doesn't actually say or do a whole lot. So she just kind of flies under the radar. But really, I don't think she's all that smart either. I mean, Trump himself is stupid, right? And we know that. Staffers all over the White House say it. Rupert Murdoch once called him a fucking idiot. I mean, conservatives all over, like people all over the conservative world, they have a disdain for Donald Trump. They think he's a moron, that he's an absolute idiot, but he's a useful idiot. And Mitch McConnell's like, hey, man, look, as long as we get somebody stupid enough to sign whatever we put in front of him, I don't care how smart he is. In fact, smart actually works against us because our policies are not based on logic and facts. So, yes, let's get somebody dumb enough to sign whatever we put in front of them. And as evidenced by the tax cuts, That's exactly what Trump is. He's just smart enough to hold a pen. But again, everybody knows he's dumb, but it's a pretty good bet. And I think we already know this too, that his kids are dumber. I mean, Eric Trump and Donald Jr. have both proven to be incredibly stupid. So dumb that even their dad thinks, boy, those kids are dumb. So I guess it shouldn't be surprised that, or we shouldn't be surprised that Ivanka is also a bit of an idiot. Now, there's one more thing here. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, look, Steve Bannon, right? He's not exactly a trustworthy source. He's not a good source, right? But the question is, and the response to that is, why lie about this? I mean, it doesn't actually serve him to lie. He is literally the king of deplorables. He is Trump's base. So I think that actually lends all these criticisms a bit of credibility. So there would be no reason to sabotage the relationship with Trump unless maybe it's a face-saving action. Cenk Uygur and the Young Turks said something very interesting last night during his commentary that I think actually applies. Bannon knows it's over. He doesn't want to get involved in the Russia stuff. He doesn't want to get touched with the Russian stuff, right? He's like, I'm not involved. I'm not going to get a lawyer. I'm not going to answer any questions. I am not involved. I am not involved in this. In fact, I called what Donald Jr. did treasonous. Meaning that Bannon, it's a good guess to think that Bannon possibly knows something about Russia, and he's distancing himself. Now, that's Cenk's commentary, and actually on that, I do agree with that. Because I think, look, you don't want to be associated, or at least you don't want to think that, or you don't want to have people think that you're anywhere near the Russia stuff, even if you're in support of the kind of the policies that Trump's putting forward. So Bannon is trying to walk a line. He's trying to get his, supporters, the Breitbart supporters and the Trump supporters, which are all part of that same group. He still wants to keep them together. So he's saying, well, hold on here. I think Trump's a great man. I still think this is, that he's going to make America great again. But I do not want to be anywhere near the Russia stuff. Because I know that this guy, he's going to be going down, and I want to keep my base. That's my thoughts on that. All right. Anyway. I know, a little bit of a tangent here. Okay. So let's move forward to Kellyanne Conway. Oh, I love this story as well. All right. So Kellyanne Conway, she's always been a strident defender of the Trump administration. When you see her on TV, you know you're going to hear a pile of unmitigated bullshit. That's kind of what she does. She goes on TV and she spreads bullshit. Now, interestingly enough, that very reason is why we've been seeing her less and less over the last few months. I mean, I don't remember seeing or hearing about an interview involving Kellyanne Conway for months. So it turns out that there's a reason for that. See, a lot of people in the White House were actually getting fed up with her ridiculous defenses of Trump, sometimes outright comical defenses of the Trump administration. Now, in the book, Fire and Fury by Michael Wolff, it said, and this is an excerpt here, Kellyanne Conway, who would put a finger gun to her head in private about Trump's public comments. So I love that visual where she's just like, Trump said what? Oh my God. I'm going to have to go out and defend that. All right, let's put our bullshitting hat on and let's go out there in front of those cameras. Now, he continues, continued to mount an implacable defense on cable television until she was pulled off the air by others in the White House who, however much the president enjoyed her, found her militancy idiotic. So you have to understand, her militancy, like she is the defender of Trump. It doesn't matter what Trump does. She'll go out and find a way to excuse it. and downplay it and bullshit about it. No, what are you talking about? Bowling Green Massacre, alternative facts. Those are two of the most famous examples of that. Now, what's interesting is even Ivanka and Jared Kushner regarded Conway's fulsome defenses as, quote, cringeworthy. Now, look, that right there, right, is I think, the act of somebody who really wants to advance her career. You don't go out there and lie your ass off on TV to protect an incredibly unpopular president unless there was something in it for you, while privately putting a finger gun to your head. You don't do that. Look, I don't know whether to applaud her determination or not, but seriously, to go out and knowingly lie to the public and make up ridiculous things, it doesn't make sense to do that if you're not going to have some sort of really good payoff in the end. So I think that fact makes Kellyanne Conway one of the worst kinds of people because they put their career over everything else. But see, you have to understand that's why Donald Trump likes her. You know, Ivanka Trump's like, oh my God, I can't believe she's out there doing this and saying these insane things. What are you talking about? The Bowling Green Massacre? What is this? That didn't actually happen. Doesn't matter. Trump loves that. He's like, yes, Kellyanne, you tell them, Kellyanne. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Trump is awesome. Yeah, they're a fake media, fake news. They all suck, but we're great. Thanks, Kellyanne. That he loves her. He loves that, right? And so that's why she was on for so long. But eventually, of course, all the other advisors and the people that actually, do things, that actually run the White House, because Donald Trump's too busy watching Fox News and golfing for 91 times out of the year to actually make decisions. So everybody else makes the decisions for him. But see, again, I have to wonder, right, how much self-respect Kellyanne Conway actually has and how much she has lost. Because, look, she knows she's bullshitting for a living. She knows she's defending a monster, and you know what? She does it anyway, and she does it with a smile. And just like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, man, they know their role, and they know that there must be, or they think there must be some sort of potential payoff. It's just like everybody who works for that, who still works for that White House. There is a potential payoff in defending Trump. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Is it influence? Is it money? I mean, influence, I wouldn't think. Money, maybe. Probably not from Trump. I don't know. Access, I'm not sure. But all I know is that in their minds, whatever they're getting out of it is worth going out there and making a fool of themselves every day. So it's power, money, or influence, whatever, for them. And the truth be damned. Okay. I am going to take a real quick break. We'll be back in just a minute. So stay right here. Round the Nation will return. Around the nation right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. You're back. I just got some tea. So, tea is nice. Definitely helps. All right. We've got more stories for you guys, including President Trump's, his McDonald's habit. Big surprise on that one. Very, very interesting. And maybe a little controversial. We'll see. All right. Let's get to it. Excuse me. Never fails, guys. Never fails. All right. Let me get prepared on this. So, no, I don't know if you've noticed, but President Trump seems to eat a lot of fast food. In fact, I think there was a recent profile, maybe in Politico or the Washington Post, where they said that, hey, the president drinks 12 Diet Cokes a day and eats lots and lots of fast food. And I thought, okay, look, as far as policy is concerned, it's not super important, but it is interesting to see what kind of diet the president actually subsists on. And then I wondered, why would you want to do that? I mean, it's not very healthy for you. But apparently, there is a reason that Trump apparently loves his fast food. And now this has been revealed in the book Fire and Fury. Now, in it, journalist Michael Wolff claims that Donald Trump loves to eat McDonald's simply because he has a fear of being poisoned. Quote, "It's the one reason why he liked to eat at McDonald's. Nobody knew he was coming, and the food was safely pre-made," Wolff wrote in the New York Magazine on Wednesday. Trump's fears of contagion, deliberate or otherwise, also led to new rules at the White House that prohibited staffers from touching his toothbrush and other personal items. According to Wolff, although it's not clear if the president believed a specific person or a group was coming after him. So that's fascinating. So, okay, look, this is paranoia, straight up. Oh my God, I have to eat at McDonald's because it's safely pre-made. Look, I don't know quite about that. I don't want to throw shade on McDonald's workers, because maybe if some of them thought, Trump's coming to my McDonald's, well, I might put a little something special in the special sauce, if you know what I mean. But I don't know. I just go back to those videos of people licking taco shells at Taco Bell. Again, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. So the whole thing about it being safely pre-made, okay, whatever. But anyway, look, and the bigger point is here, it definitely seems like he's paranoid. I mean, oh my God, somebody's going to poison my food. To be fair, somebody did try to kill him. But the reason that nobody mentions it and that you don't hear about this is because it was a white British guy. Yeah, and we all remember that. Those of us in the news, but most people don't even know about it. Somebody actually did try to assassinate the president, but it was a white guy. So now that guy, of course, needs to be punished to the full extent of the law. We can have that. But still, the reason we didn't hear anything about it is because it wasn't an African American. It wasn't a Muslim. It was a random white guy. So, I mean, look, if it was anything else, obviously we would hear about it nonstop. But again, white guy, doesn't really fit our narrative. We're not really concerned. Okay. But still, look, he seems really paranoid. And look, I'm no doctor, and I don't really want to be Dr. Keith Abloing this. But look, something feels off about him, right? And as far as the kind of stuff that he does, excuse me, it's killing me today. Look, something's off about him, okay? This is not the way a normal person acts. I mean, he's been described in different articles as a child. And this is from people who work with him, staffers, right? People who work under him. They're like, no, the guy's a child. He doesn't make rational decisions. He's not a rational person. So, and he can't focus. He he can't do like more than one tweet at a time when it comes to policy. They've got to pepper his name through it. All these different things, right? Kind of points the picture to somebody who's not entirely there. It feels like he's, I don't know, that he kind of checked out mentally. Just say, right? I mean, let me give you another example. There was one advisor that tried to teach him about the Constitution. He didn't get very far. Now, the Constitution, kind of important if you're going to run the country, right? Now, this campaign advisor told Wolf, quote, I got as far as the Fourth Amendment before his finger is pulling down on his lip and his eyes are rolling back on his head. So, look, again, he's lazy. He's not very smart. Doesn't believe in facts. Actually thinks that it's not diet and exercise that actually give you energy. But again, he believes that you're born with a certain amount of energy. And that if you actually work out and you do things, well, then that depletes your energy, right? Literally, he thinks that we're battery powered. It's insane. The guy has insane views. That's why he's like, oh, Jeb Bush, low energy, did too much. Now he's low energy Jeb Bush. These people, these haters, they're low energy. Sad. He's got crazy beliefs. And now crazy beliefs about food. Look, it gets you wondering, is there actually something functionally mentally wrong with him? Or is he just that big of an idiot? I don't know. I'm still going to go with stupid at this point. But I'm open to the possibility that, again, he is not there mentally, that he is checked out and is basically running this whole operation on autopilot. I wouldn't be surprised if it came out. And oddly enough, or not oddly enough, there are a lot of people who think maybe the same thing. That there are psychologists and doctors that are like, maybe he might be crazy. But certainly his diet definitely does not help. But you can see this diet is spurred on by what seems to be weird paranoid delusions, man. This is not somebody who's normal. Okay. Let's move on here. On to some real policy stuff. Stuff that's important. Okay. So there's big news after the legalization of marijuana in California. Obviously, that was huge news. It happened on the 1st, and California became the 6th state to legalize marijuana. And there are actually more on the way. In response to this, Attorney General Jeff Sessions has decided to roll back an Obama-era policy that actually would give states the ability to allow marijuana for recreational purposes. So now this is from The Hill. Two sources with knowledge of the decision confirmed to that publication that Sessions will rescind something called the Cole Memo, which ordered U.S. attorneys in states where marijuana has been legal to deprioritize prosecution of marijuana-related cases. So now Sessions said that future prosecutions would be up to individual U.S. attorneys. According to Politico, the announcement appeared intended to discourage marijuana-related businesses by being deliberately vague about future federal enforcement efforts. Now, the effort will likely further muddle the legal status of marijuana for states that have passed legalization, allowing people to grow, buy, or use pot. So what they're doing, basically, is an effort to, I think, prevent the pot lobby from forming. I mean, look, right now it's $1 billion business, right? You got hedge funders, entrepreneurs that want to get in. I mean, it makes sense, right? Once that lobby gets big enough, it's over. It's over. Marijuana is going to be legal. And here comes Jeff Sessions saying, hold on there a minute. I want to actually prevent it by making these rules super, super vague. Now, the good news from my perspective is I don't think they'll actually be able to do it. I think that these businesses will take a calculated risk because of the potential for profit. There is gold and then there are leaves, right? They already see that potential for profit. And I think this is Jeff Sessions' last stand against legal weed. Again, 6 states, more on the way. I don't think he's going to be successful in the long term at stopping this. And here's why. The Hill notes that some industry analysts peg the North American cannabis market at $10 billion in annual sales. $10 billion. That is a lot of money on the line. You think that Jeff Sessions making these rules a little unclear? You think that's going to do anything? I don't think so. I mean, maybe they might slow it down, but I think the marijuana fight is essentially over. They just don't know it yet. But see, public opinion is on our side. Business is now getting on our side. And so when you have those two things, popular opinion plus corporate interests, well, look, corporate interests means there's going to start greasing politicians. Those politicians, that are going to be funded by the pot lobby, they're going to be like, okay. Now, right now, one industry that's standing in the way is the alcohol industry. They're actually one of the biggest losers here. And why is that? It's because when people smoke marijuana, they generally tend to drink less. And I'm not just saying that. There's actually studies that show this. There's one, according to a working paper by researchers at the University of Connecticut and Georgia State University, found that alcohol beverage sales fell by 15% following the introduction of medical marijuana laws in a number of states. Now, this is just medical marijuana. This isn't even recreational marijuana. Now, the study concludes that we find that marijuana and alcohol are strong substitutes for each other. Meaning, if there's legal weed, people would rather go and smoke marijuana. If marijuana is not legal, they find that people will gravitate towards alcohol instead. Now, they continue. Counties located in medical marijuana states reduced monthly alcohol sales by 15% after the introduction of medical marijuana laws. So that's why they are so against this, and that these alcohol lobbyists are pushing people like Sessions to go and be have more enforcement from the federal level on these states. They're like, we need to stop legal pot because it's actually destroying our bottom line. It's destroying our business. So if we want to continue doing business, then we're going to have to take on marijuana. We cannot let them grow too large because they're going to come after our bottom line. That's what this is all about. That said, I think they're too little too late. There's already this momentum that the marijuana legalization movement has that has already been built up. And there's so many successes that have been had already. Colorado, Washington. I mean, look, to Colorado, I believe either the governor or attorney general, he's like, no, we're not actually going to change our enforcement policies at all. So, no, we're not changing a damn thing. Legal marijuana is here to stay because it's a huge, huge business. And again, California, so goes California, so goes the rest of the nation. This is not going to stop this. And by the way, marijuana legalization is far more than just about smoking weed. I've never smoked pot in my life. I'm 100% for legalization. Why? Well, number one, there's a ton of benefits. There's a few downsides as well, just like anything else. But there's a lot of medical benefits to it that I've read about. But I think the biggest reason personally for me is mass incarceration for nonviolent drug crimes. We need to end that mass incarceration. There are too many people, especially African Americans, minorities, that are arrested. And look, white people and black people do marijuana about the same rate. Yet African Americans get arrested about nearly 4 times more, about 3.73% times more than white people, and they're put into jail. In which, when they're put into jail, by the way, they end up doing essentially what is slave labor for corporations. That's an insane system. So, yes, we've got to stop that. And I think legalizing marijuana is actually going to do a lot. Is it going to end mass incarceration completely? No, of course not. They'll find some other way to throw people in prison. But right now, this is one of their main things. The drug war is one of the main ways that they use to arrest millions of people and keep them in prison and keep that recidivism rate up. So this would do a lot to help end that problem. And so, look, Jeff Sessions, he's going to do what he's going to do. He's going to try to stop this in its tracks, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, in the long term, he was going to be unsuccessful. Legalization is still going to happen across the country. 10 years. I give it 10 years. And then we will see finally the end of this ridiculous prohibition on marijuana. Okay. Alrighty. Let's move on. Another pot-related story here. Now, earlier today, Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced that he would be rescinding an Obama-era policy that would keep the federal government from interfering in states that have legalized medical and recreational marijuana. Now, Sessions, he's been a longtime opponent of legalizing marijuana. He said that people that smoke marijuana are not good people, and he even once joked about how he was fine with the Klan until he found out they smoked weed. Classy guy, right? Oh no, I was cool with the Klan. Like, even in a joke, when you put that in a joking context, that still sounds like, it still makes you look like a shitty person. And no doubt, Jeff Sessions is a terrible, shitty person, in my opinion. So, I mean, who even makes that joke? Like, oh, yeah, I used to love the Klan, but then they smoked pot. Like, nobody understands. At least nobody under 50 finds that funny. But I'm sure the people that he hangs out in good old Alabama, well, they find it absolutely hilarious. But anyway, not only that, but of course, during his time in the U.S. Senate and as Attorney General, Sessions has repeatedly compared cannabis to drugs like heroin. Like super, super hard drugs, super addictive drugs like heroin. Just the same. It's just the same. They're just as addictive. And there's just as many deaths. Really? Because we have numbers, we have facts, we have data that completely disproves that 100%. It is laughably false to say that marijuana is exactly the same as heroin. It is just as dangerous as heroin. It is complete and utter nonsense. Now, how many people have died from overdosing on pot? None. It's literally impossible. There are people that have probably tried. Yes, you will feel incredibly paranoid, and I'm sure you'll, just be tripping off your ass. But you cannot smoke enough pot. You cannot realistically smoke enough weed to kill you. Whereas you can overdose, obviously, on heroin. You can overdose on OxyContin. You can overdose on alcohol. You can get so drunk that you end up dying. Alcohol poisoning. Can't do that with marijuana. Can't do that with marijuana. It is absolutely impossible. Now, anyway, after that announcement, Senator Bernie Sanders decided that he would have a few words with our esteemed Attorney General from Alabama. Quote, "No, Attorney General Sessions, marijuana is not the same as heroin." This is Bernie Sanders saying in his Thursday statement, "No one who has seriously studied the issue believes that marijuana should be classified as a Schedule I drug beside killer drugs like heroin. Quite the contrary. We should allow states the right to move forward towards the decriminalization of marijuana, not reverse the progress that has been made in recent years." So that's Bernie Sanders' statement, of course, coming out strong in favor of decriminalization. Not the same as legalization, but decriminalization pretty damn good, right? And that would be a major, major step forward. So Bernie Sanders, not quite as progressive as you would say, but still pretty damn progressive, especially compared to Jeff Sessions or any of the Republicans, and especially a lot of the Democrats. Democrats have been very, very slow to embrace the, legalizing medical marijuana and recreational marijuana across the states. Again, there's progressive champions that are doing that in California, in Massachusetts, in many of these other places, but the Democratic Party establishment as a whole, not at all interested, or at least very tepidly interested in actually pushing towards medical marijuana, which is insane because you look at the polling on that, over half the country is in favor of legalizing recreational marijuana. So this is an issue where it's incredibly popular. But then when we're talking about the Democratic and Republican establishment, you also have to look at who's paying them, right? And I'm pretty sure, look, Andrew, I think it was Cuomo, right? I believe it might have been Andrew Cuomo or Michael Cuomo, one of those guys in New York, Bill de Blasio, possibly, and I may be getting this wrong, but one of them came out, and it was a few months ago, and he's like, no, we are totally against marijuana legalization, and it turned out, oh, look, you're getting funded by big alcohol. Oh, no wonder you've taken that stance on recreational marijuana. But that's how much impact money has in our politics. And that's also why I think once marijuana actually ends up getting a gigantic lobby, then it's over. They get the money, they grease the politicians, and suddenly weed for everybody. But anyway, now, as far as Sessions goes, I thought you were for states' rights, Jeff. What do you have against states' rights? I mean, are you a conservative? Because I thought that was a conservative principle. Don't you believe that the federal government should allow states to do some of their own laws? Was that the big government, big federal government coming in and interfering? But that's exactly what you're doing. You're saying, you know what? We think it's okay that the federal government comes in and interferes. Now, to be fair, look, he's not saying that we're going to definitely interfere. We're just saying, oh, we're going to rescind these Obama-era rules that say that we're not going to interfere. So, hey, man, it's up in the air. Anything goes. Anything goes. We could come after you, states, or we might not. So you better be good and not do marijuana legalization. I think that's the whole point. But look, Sessions, he doesn't believe in states' rights. He's an authoritarian. What he wants is the federal government to be able to go into these states and do whatever the hell they want. Imprison people for smoking a plant to help your buddies in the alcohol industry. That's what he wants to do, despite the fact that he's 100% wrong about marijuana being a dangerous gateway drug akin to heroin. No, heroin's killing people. OxyContin, completely 100% legal pharmaceutical drugs, are killing people. That has led to the opioid epidemic, right? We have an epidemic of people who have been prescribed legal narcotic prescription drugs that have gotten addicted to these narcotic prescription drugs and have transitioned to heroin because they weren't able to go and get more of that prescription drug. And here we have marijuana, which actually can help get people away from doing opiates. But no, we're going to launch a second, we're going to double down, I should say, on another war on marijuana. This is absolutely ridiculous. He does not care about people. No, he's on the side of big alcohol, and he's on the side of ruining people's lives. He doesn't give a damn about freedom or science or facts. Bernie Sanders is right. We do need to allow the states to move towards decriminalization. If the federal government's not going to do it, then the states should be allowed to do it because it is their states' rights to do. So, look, get out of our lives, man. That's what I have. That's the message I have for Jeff Sessions and the Republicans. Get the fuck out of our lives. Actually stop being a hypocrite and allow states' rights. Okay. I think I'm clear. Generally, I think I'm fairly clear. All right. Well, at least I held out for that long. All right. Let's have some more tea. And I want to squeeze in this last story here for you guys. Since I'm like on a roll here. Speaking of states' rights. All right. So last month, Ajit Pai and the FCC basically dismantled net neutrality. Net neutrality, of course, makes sure that all content on the internet is treated equally by internet content or internet service providers. Now, this order from the FCC basically overturned Obama-era rules that kept the internet the same as it had always been. And of course, the Republican argument against this is, you're changing the internet. No, these rules actually kept the internet the same way that it was. It actually codified the existing attitude towards the internet, which is non-interventionist. The government's not going to interfere or intervene in the internet. And also, private corporations are not going to interfere in content. We're going to treat all the content the same. We're not going to allow you to throttle, block, or slow down, or do any of that stuff, right? That's what net neutrality rules are for. Well, they got rid of those because some corporations, the ISPs decided, no, we actually want to do that. More importantly, yeah, we may not block or throttle, but we actually want to do something called paid prioritization. Now, after that decision, of course, there's a lot of states that decided, hey, you know what? We don't care what you say, FCC. We're going to enact our own net neutrality rules. Well, that's interesting. Not only that, but there was also a lot of lawsuits from different activist groups who also said, we don't want you messing with the internet. We don't want corporations to have full control over the internet. In fact, California State Senator Scott Weiner says, we all agree that in an ideal world that net neutrality should be handled at the federal level. But if the federal government's going to abdicate, then we need to take action, and I'm glad that a number of states are looking at this. So they're looking at putting their own net neutrality rules. Now, this is from an article in Ars Technica, by the way. Along with pursuing lawsuits over irregularities in the FCC process, several states are crafting their own net neutrality laws, which they will start debating as the new legislative sessions commence this month. Now, these laws would prohibit service providers from blocking or hindering access to legal online content sources or from offering premium bandwidth fast lane deals to others. Now, Washington State was the first to act, with Democrat and Republican state representatives debuting nearly identical bills back-to-back on December 13th and 14th. So that's interesting, right? So the 14th of December is when they actually had to vote. So they knew that this was coming. We all knew that Ajit Pai was sent there to destroy net neutrality. That's exactly what he did. So this Democrat and this Republican in Washington, they both had the same idea. We're going to put out the same bill for our own net neutrality in our state, and we're going to do it at the same time. Now, it makes sense, right? Because, look, even a majority of Republicans, when you ask them, they are in favor of some sort of net neutrality rules. And, look, the idea is, and it's actually a conservative idea, that we're not going to have the government go and intervene in the internet and shut down content and police content or do any of that stuff. But we're also not going to let the corporations do the same thing. We're not going to let anybody do that. We're going to keep the internet fair and free and open, right? With limited rules. That's actually a very conservative position, right? And that's actually why I think this should be a nonpartisan issue. Now, of course, the Republicans and Democrats make it partisan. I would argue that Republicans mostly made it partisan, like people like Ted Cruz, that was like, it's the Obamacare of the internet. No, it isn't. First of all, Ted Cruz has no idea what the internet actually is and how it works. Most of these Republican politicians that are against this have no idea. So they're talking out their asses when they talk about the internet. But again, most of their constituents actually do care about net neutrality, and they want to preserve the internet as it is, free and fair, for people of all political stripes. Actually, it is the ultimate medium for free speech. So, I mean, it's kind of a shame that all these so-called free speech activists, right, people like Milo Yiannopoulos and Baked Alaska and all these ridiculous right-wingers, alt-righters, are like, I am now against net neutrality to trigger the libs. You're an idiot if you think that. Like, if all you want to do is sit there and trigger the libs, then what? You're going to make sure that the internet is handed over to the corporations? I thought you hated the establishment. The establishment is politics and, or I should say, politicians and corporations working together to screw you. That's what the establishment is doing. If you're going to be in favor of that, then you can't call yourself anti-establishment. No, you're a fascist, you're a corporatist. And we're against both of those. People on the right and left are both against that. But anyway, now they're trying to do their own laws, these states, but it's actually a little difficult because in its order abolishing net neutrality, the FCC asserted the federal government had a right to preempt other laws and policies for the states. It said allowing state and local governments to adopt their own separate requirements could impose far greater burdens than the federal regulatory regime and could significantly disrupt the balance we strike. Basically, saying that states, local areas, you are not allowed to do your own laws. Our law, our rules, banning net neutrality or removing net neutrality protections in Title II regulatory statutes, it will override state law. So if you try to pass a law in your state, I'm sorry, it's not going to take effect because the FCC, the federal government agency, will overrule you. Now that, of course, is not very conservative. And again, surprising me why a lot of Republicans are like, oh, yeah, no, yeah, totally preempt these laws. What happened to states' rights? Do you guys care about states' rights? No, of course you don't care about states' rights. Now, what's interesting about these preemption laws is that you can use a states' rights argument to actually fight against them, and that's actually what states are doing. But there is another way that the states are fighting as well. And Ars Technica explains. Rather than regulate ISPs directly, New York would exert financial pressure by only allowing the state and local governments to contract with ISPs certified as meeting New York's net neutrality requirements. So like, okay, when you want to preempt us, well, you can't stop us from using our financial pressure to stop these companies from doing blocking or anything like that. Now, they also are looking at making net neutrality standards a prerequisite for awarding cable franchises or providing access to state-owned land or utility poles for laying cables. And they're also looking at regulating ISPs under consumer protection law. Now, those laws challenging preemption, by the way, that I mentioned, they actually do have precedent and they could work. So this is the other way. So first they're looking at, okay, we're going to go around the laws, but then there are other states that are looking at challenging the laws directly, and there's a good precedent to be able to take that on. Now, for example, back in March of 2016, there was a court case in Tennessee. Now, while under the control of the Democrats, the FCC tried to preempt state laws in Tennessee and North Carolina that prevented municipal-owned broadband networks from expanding. Now, for me, I look at that and I'm like, I don't care if it's Democratic controlled. I'm in support of expanding municipal broadband, so it could be a competitor to some of these big monopolistic or duopolistic cable companies, cable ISPs. So I would be against, obviously, the government using these preemption laws, right? Now, the FCC said in its mandate to expand access to broadband allowed it to override state restrictions, which critics called favors to private ISPs. The Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals disagreed, finding that the FCC did not have authority to meddle in state affairs. Now, what worked against municipal broadband back in 2016 might actually end up working with us now with net neutrality. So that's what Washington State is going to do. It would directly tell ISPs what they can and cannot do in the belief that the FCC does not have the legal standing in order to stop them. Republican Norma Smith said there is not specific granting of preemption authority from Congress in this space. Smith's Democratic counterpart, Drew Hansen, said the FCC, on the one hand, said that they don't have the authority to regulate standards and conduct on the internet, but on the other hand, they still have the authority to preempt state laws. I don't know how both of those can exist at the same time. They have a point. He's got a point. Like, well, either you can not have the authority to regulate the internet and have the authority to preempt state laws. No, you can't have that at the same time. It's having your cake and eating it too. It doesn't work. That's why they both came up with this bill. One Republican, one Democrat actually doing bipartisan work to protect net neutrality. That's amazing. That is something that we have not seen before. And this legislation that they're introducing in Washington would consolidate, yes, they would have to consolidate this, of course, and that's what they're looking to do, and they're putting it into one bill, has the most concise description of net neutrality, each running less than 3 pages. So this bill would require ISPs to simply, quote, disclose accurate information regarding the network management practices, performance, and commercial terms of broadband internet access services sufficient for consumers to make informed choices. So basically, it's like, be transparent. That's all that's saying. We want to know what you're doing and how you're doing it, so that if you mess it up, we can challenge you on whether or not you're living up to your commitments for net neutrality. It also goes on to prohibit blocking and impairing access to content, often called throttling, or allowing for paid prioritization, which is exactly what they've been trying to do. Comcast, for example, immediately, as soon as they got close to a net neutrality repeal, had quietly dropped their promise not to do these fast lanes. Look, most internet service providers, they weren't going to openly throttle or block to begin with. They knew that they would have a customer backlash. So they were putting all their money into these internet fast lanes. Well, this legislation would say absolutely not. You cannot do that. So now, Ars Technica will actually continues with this and says that it defines that last item to include favoring some traffic over other traffic in exchange for consideration, monetary or otherwise, from a third party, or to benefit an affiliated entity. It goes through and prohibits all the technical ways that an ISP could actually do paid prioritization rules. Norma Smith's bill has the same prohibition on paid prioritization as Hansen's. We clearly have Republicans like myself, she says, who are concerned about the impact on consumers and the people we represent. And I think you are going to see legislation that is indeed bipartisan. So again, this is great legislation that is actually bipartisan at a state level, where most of the politicians still are not corrupted. Now, you see something like this in Congress, you probably wouldn't. Will you see a continuing resolution in Congress, or CRA? So that's not continuing resolution, I'm sorry. Congressional Review Act legislation. Will you see that in Congress? No. Absolutely not. At least I don't think so. I don't see a lot of Republicans actually going and doing the Congressional Review Act on the FCC's ruling. Now, that would, of course, be an incredibly effective way to be able to restore net neutrality. But you have so many interests on the side of big telecommunications industries, these gigantic multinational corporations that own a lot of the media, funneling tons and tons of money into both Democrats and Republicans to be able to stop net neutrality rules from actually being reintroduced, or anything like a Congressional Review Act ruling to be or decision to be made. They don't want that. They don't want that at all. So that's why I think a lot of the hope rests at the state level at this point. And if their challenges are actually, because they do have some precedent, they do have some merit, if their challenges are successful, well, then that could mean that at least a lot of these states could end up adopting their own net neutrality laws, which would be a good thing, at least if you live in that state. So a lot of states are fighting. I mean, net neutrality is not quite over yet. So this is good. I mean, for example, 22 states have introduced legislation responding to the rollback of ISP privacy regulations, as well as net neutrality rules. And more states might join in because they were worried about the fraud that was in the comment process for the net neutrality rule. So, look, there's a lot of dead people that ended up doing comments, a lot of trolls, a lot of bots, a lot of spam. So, look, Ajit Pai didn't give a shit. He didn't actually care about that. But there are people actually that are interested in having a fair and transparent process when it comes to a comment period. So that's just some of the ways that we're still fighting the net neutrality fight. Now, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a short fight. But one way or another, I do think in the end, net neutrality will win out in the end. I know it's going to be an issue for some time. And I think, again, in the long term, we will win this fight. Now, most people support some form of net neutrality. There is corporate support for net neutrality rules. That's incredibly rare. And look, if all else fails, we get a Democratic president, a progressive president. He can appoint someone to the FCC to overturn or reinstate these rules anyway. So at the end of the day, I think we will win out. Either way, the fight is far, far from over. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me. Make sure to give us a like and a share if you haven't already. I need to go and sleep or something. No, I cannot actually. I've got a lot of editing to do. But anyway, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, share, do all that wonderful stuff. Thank you for watching. And if you want to support the show, patreon.com/TYTNation. That's how you can support us online. So, all right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. We'll see you guys later.